Hey everyone, my name is Jax, and in this video, we're going to be going over how to play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And specifically, we're going to be starting with how to do combat. Dungeons & Dragons can be pretty intimidating at first, but if broken down step by step in a organic way, which I believe is the best way to learn, it's not too bad. It's a very fun thing to learn. Honestly, the best way to learn how to play is to play. But I also understand that people can learn differently and they might feel better learning from a controlled environment, such as a video that they can reference to. And hopefully this helps you. Hopefully this is what you're looking for. But otherwise, this video will be limited to mainly just combat. There could be other videos, perhaps even a series of introducing other topics. But for now, I think the biggest thing that's keeping people from getting into Dungeons & Dragons is the combat, because most people don't know how it works, because it can be involved, especially if you don't know like what all these numbers mean, like AC or DC, what those stand for, how they play a role in the game. If you ever played The Lost Mines of Phandelver, this scene will look pretty familiar to you. It's actually a very infamous scene, just because this scene has known to take out a lot of adventuring parties at the first time they encounter this. And there's a reason why it's difficult, and we'll get to that in a bit. But I'm going to be playing both the NPCs and the player characters over here, as you can see on my screen. And I'll just go through how I think someone might approach this scene, and then get into the combat. So you have the adventuring party approaching what looks like to be two horses that have a bunch of arrows on them. So right now these guys are hidden, but the adventuring party might approach this and be like, what's going on? So the player characters, also known as PCs, will approach this in whichever way. You know, like I said, they might want to just run up and look, investigate it, or someone who's a bit more keen might call for a perception check, or to kind of see their surroundings. Can I see anything in the trees, or is there anything weird? Like, do I see any tracks running off in the dirt? And, depending on your DM, if whatever DC they set, if they succeed, that he or she might give you a piece of information. But let's just assume that the players are just walking forward. They don't, they didn't roll high enough on their perception checks. And if they want to investigate, they have to get a bit further, right? So they kind of start going into this, what looks like to be a valley, and kind of have to think, as a player, how do you want to be tactical? Like, do you want to approach this in a way where you're putting yourself in what could be considered a disadvantageous position, because you are going inside a valley? You're going inside a place where creatures could have the high ground. Not that in D&D that high ground actually plays a role, but it puts you in a disadvantageous position, because if you wanted to go up here, say you want to go up here, you could consider this rough terrain, which would take twice as much movement. You could also say that creatures that are up here could be considered in half cover, because they could shoot then kind of duck down, like realistically. But really it's up to how the DM wants to play it. But that's just a few things that you could think of why this could be disadvantageous for an adventuring party to go here. But nonetheless, they keep pressing forward. And so now we're at a point where the DM might decide that, okay, I'm going to have the monsters attack the NPC or the PCs. And so at this point, these characters are going to be considered surprised if they cannot see these goblins. And so with that being said, so now they're going to come online, and they're going to come on to the token layer. And so they are now seen. These characters are the prize, so these characters are the ones surprising the NPC or the PCs. So combat's done step by step. And in this phase, we're determining surprise. And so the goblins are surprising the player character party. So that means these goblins get a full turn of action, and these people cannot do anything about it because they are surprised. And not only that, because they're surprised, these things attack with advantage, and we'll get into what advantage is later on. But basically, it allows them to roll 2 dice to hit instead of just 1. So, first step, we determine surprise. These people are surprised. These are the surprisers. Second, we determine the position of where everyone is. So we have a goblin here, a goblin here, a goblin here, and a goblin here. And all of our player characters are right here. So that is our stated positions. And so from here, we're going to do something called roll initiative. And when the DM says roll initiative, that's when you know things are going to go down. So I'm using Roll20. You can use whatever you want. I just use Roll20 because I'm familiar with it, and to me it works really nice. It's in the browser. You don't need to download anything. So I really like Roll20. So feel free to use whatever you like, but the nice thing about Roll20 is that it automatically calculates everything for you. You don't need to do the number crunching, simple arithmetic really, but it speeds things up really. So let's go ahead and open the turn order. And so each one of these people, plus the goblins, are going to roll initiative. And what a roll initiative is basically, it's just a dexterity check. But there is also a fancy button that does it for you. So you can just click this. So we rolled initiative. Cleric rolled a nat 20, which is great. And you can see initiative is just a flat dex check. Wow, they're all rolling 20s. That's pretty good. These people are rolling very high. Okay, there we go. We got something a bit lower. I was kind of wondering if this was set up. Wow, still rolled really high. And so now let's go ahead and roll for the goblins. And you can see that it's whispering to me, but it's not really a big deal. I'm not too concerned. But typically you don't want to whisper the rolls unless your DM or GM calls for it. So now we have everyone has rolled. However, since the player characters here were surprised, sorry, I should say the goblins get a full round of action where the player characters can't do anything because they're surprised. To break down what a round is, a round represents about 6 seconds in game time, or in the game world, but in real time we're talking about what we want to do. If we wanted to cast a spell, shoot an arrow, slash a sword, run up to something, run away. Basically a round or a turn of action basically just consists of 6 seconds in game world. Every person gets a turn, and after everyone's done, that's the round. And so let's go ahead and sort it by who goes first, but let's go ahead and have the goblins do their turns first, because remember, they got surprised. And with that, they also attack with advantage. And the reason why they attack with advantage is because these people are surprised. So let's go ahead and see how this works out for them. We'll go ahead and have the goblin attack the cleric with the short bow, and again, using Roll20. But you can see all the things that this creature comes with. It has a +4 to hit. It shows the range, how many targets, as well as the damage right here. So the damage formula. And to get into the nitty gritty of like what each weapon does, Roll20 has a nice weapons sheet that you could reference, and I will show that. So just using Roll20's weapon sheet, you can see here it has all the information. You can review this. It shows you all the properties, how much it typically costs at his store, the damage, the weight, etc., etc. And then you can just kind of go through this and look. Same thing with the armor. If you wanted to look at the armor, here you go. This is how it's all calculated, and all the properties of that. So this goblin is going to attack the cleric. It's just, I'm just choosing someone random. It doesn't have to be the cleric. But we'll go ahead and click short bow. And if you were playing D&D with just, pen and paper and some dice, that's great. You could do that. That's totally fine. But we'll go ahead and once this is done, then I'll explain like what all the numbers mean. So we'll go ahead and click. And so it automatically rolls with advantage. So you can see I'm clicking through each character sheet. It's saying don't auto roll damage. I want to fix that because I want the damage to automatically roll. So I'm going to go ahead and switch everyone's sheet to reflect automatically rolling damage because right now it only rolled the attack roll. And so we're going to go ahead and fix that. So let's go ahead and try it again. I'll talk about the number, but I'll just say this one didn't hit. But let's go ahead and talk about the numbers real quick. So in the first one, he or it, whatever gender it may be, rolled an 11 and a 6. And so we compare those numbers, whichever's higher, in this case, the 11, and we compare it to the cleric's AC or armor class. In this case, we know the armor class is right here. However, you can click on the character sheet and look at the armor class 18 right here. And if the attack roll is equal to or higher than the armor class of the target, then the attack lands. However, in this case, it does not land. If it did land, it would have done 6 damage. And so the way an attack roll is determined is you can actually hover over the numbers. That's the nice thing about using an online tabletop role-playing simulator. Is you can see right here, you roll the d20, and that's for all attack rolls, whether it's ranged, melee, spell attack. You always use a d20. And in this case, you're going to add to the d20, you're going to add your modifier to whatever weapon, whatever modifier it uses. In this case, a bow uses dex. So we're going to add that +2. And then we're going to also add the proficiency bonus. But since this is an NPC, it doesn't really apply. They already have a set amount of what is attacking. So it automatically gets a +4. But typically, like if a player character attacks, so let's go ahead and see, what happens if the rogue attacks. And so just we can explain what happens. So let's go ahead and just pretend we're shooting this goblin. Do the same thing. So same numbers appear, right? So we had the attack roll. We had a nat 1 and an 18. And then in the case of a nat 1, no matter what the modifiers are for the character or the target's AC, it's going to miss no matter what. If you roll a nat 1, it's a critical failure. If you roll a nat 20, on the other hand, it's a critical success, and it's going to hit no matter what. So it goes both ways. So you can see here, it rolled the d20. It also added the dex modifier plus proficiency bonus. And you can see it broke it down in the bottom right here. So in this case, we add the 1 plus the 3 from the dex if we open up the character sheet. The 3 as well as the proficiency bonus. And proficiency bonus is just determined, it's a set value that you have from your proficiency bonus is just a set value that your character earns as they level up. And you can reference proficiency bonus tables throughout any, through the player's handbook or whatever it may be. But, as you level, this proficiency bonus can change. It doesn't change every level, but it changes some levels. So always kind of check what your proficiency bonus is. But the nice thing about Roll20, it automatically changes for you. So you don't have to worry about that. So that's how you determine attack roll for both melee and ranged. You roll the d20, you add the modifier, then your proficiency bonus. And for the damage, it's just the same, not the same thing, but you look at the weapon's property, in this case a short bow, you roll a d6. And if we check the weapons here, we could see, where is it? Short bow, 1d6 piercing damage. That's exactly what we have here. We have a 1d6 piercing damage plus our modifier. So we roll the d6, we got top damage, we rolled the 6 on the d6, and then we add 3 dex. So we have max damage of 9. But I just want to note, the rogue was not supposed to go. I just wanted to roll the rogue's attack just so you can kind of see what it looks like from a player character standpoint. So we'll go ahead and continue the attacks from the goblin for the surprise round. So let's go ahead and have this person attack the rogue, see if it lands. A 12 and a 15. Let's see what the rogue's AC is. A 14. So in this case, because they attack with advantage, again, they roll two dice to see whatever's higher. In this case, we take the 15 because it's higher. And so they do hit. So we're going to minus 3 damage from this target's HP. A minus 3. This one is going to attack this fighter. So let's see if this lands. 8 and a 6 probably won't land. It's not great. So yeah, this person's fine. And then this person will go after this fighter as well. 14 or 15 and a 16. Let's see what. So they have 17. So they don't land. So both of these, this attack on this fighter miss and this attack on this fighter miss. Again, it's because the attack rolls were lower than the target's AC. So in this case, 8 and 6 were lower than 14, and 15 and 16 were lower than 17. So there is no damage done to these targets. If this was 17 or higher, we would have minus 4 HP from this fighter. But in this case, nothing happens. So now that's the surprise round. So all these goblins took their turn. So now we start from the top. So this rogue is going to go. We'll just pretend that roll was their attack. However, they only roll 1 dice. They're not supposed to roll advantage. So they roll the nat 1. It's a critical failure. But so now there's a few other things that they can do. So when it's your turn in combat, there's a few things that you could do. You don't always have to attack. You could do a lot of things. You have movement, you have an action, and you have a bonus action. You also have a reaction, but there's specific triggers for a reaction to occur. And a reaction only happens on a specific trigger, and it can only happen once per round, not per turn. So the most common type of reaction is something called an attack of opportunity. So say if this goblin was here and they moved away out of reach from this rogue, this goblin could get an attack of opportunity from the cleric and from the rogue because they moved out of range of these two characters. Thus, they would use their reaction to give an opportunity attack. And what that involves is just, this person would use their melee weapon, and this person can use their melee weapon as well. But we'll go ahead and move them back. So as an action, you can attack, you can cast a spell, you can dash, you can disengage, you can dodge, you can do the help action, you can do hide, you can ready an action, you could search, or you can use an object. And so what do all those entail? Well, we've already gone over what an attack is. You kind of already seen here. This is a version of an attack. So that would use the action. An attack is an action. So at this point, this rogue only has bonus actions left. And so there are specific things that a rogue can do that would be considered a bonus action. Bonus actions are usually defined as something especially swift or fast that one can do. This rogue is level 1, so they don't have the cunning action class feature yet. But what that would allow them to do is that they can actually use a bonus action to dash, disengage, or hide. However, since this is level 1, they don't have anything that they could use for a bonus action because a bonus action is limited to a select few items or a select few actions. And those things will be specifically called as a bonus action. So the rogue has used their action. They don't have any bonus actions. The only thing that they have left is movement. And you know how many spaces you can move based off the speed of the character. In this case, this rogue has 25 speed. And typically you can kind of see this grid right here. Typically each space in the grid is 5 feet. So in this case, we're going to move this character 25 feet. Seems like they're trying to make their way to this tree to perhaps get some cover away from these goblins to not get shot. So that's the rogue's turn. That's basically their whole turn, especially level 1 this early on. You're not going to be doing, much action. You're basically just going to have only a few things that you could do. So you don't have to attack first and then move. You could do it in any order. You could do your bonus action first. You could do your movement first. You could do your action first, whatever you want. In this case, it makes sense for the fighter folk hero to kind of close the gap between them and this goblin, right? So they're going to move here. They moved 25 feet, but if we look at their movement, they actually have 30 feet of movement. So they're going to go here, and they're going to take their greatsword, and they're going to do an action. So they did their movement first, and now they're going to do their action. So we'll go ahead and click the greatsword weapon, and look at that. So a 21 to hit. The goblin only has 15 AC. So this does land -5 HP. So that was their movement. They have 5 feet of move, so maybe they want to go here. You could do that, that's fine. However, remember, this does not trigger an attack of opportunity. And the reason why this doesn't trigger an attack of opportunity is because they're still within reach of the goblin. If this person were to go here, they're officially out of reach, so now this goblin can attack this person with an attack of opportunity. But because they're staying within reach, no attacks of opportunity. So this fighter actually has a bonus action that they can do, and it's specifically called out right here as a bonus action. But since they have all their HP, there's really no point in them using the second wind feature. So we're gonna hold on to this just in case. And so this fighter is going to go ahead and end their turn. And so now we get to the cleric. The cleric is going to go ahead and try to do some damage to this goblin. It could be argued that maybe they didn't get a good view because of how high this might be. It's up to your DM to determine, if you have a line of sight to the creature. In this case, I'm going to go ahead, because a rogue already shot at them. They do have line of sight. In this case, it's not really a big issue. So this cleric is going to go ahead, and clerics are casters. And so instead of an attack, this person could attack. For all intents and purposes, they could attack. They could use their Warhammer and go ahead and attack. But they are also casters. So we could go to their spells and review what they have access to. And so in this case, an action could be casting a leveled spell. And you're probably wondering, oh, could I cast 2 spells? You could. You could absolutely cast 2 spells. But what you cannot do, and there are certain cases where you could actually do this, but 98% of cases, you can't cast 2 leveled spells, even if one's an action and one is a bonus action. And what I mean by that is Healing Word is a bonus action, and you can see the casting time says right here, bonus action. So that compared to Guiding Bolt, which is a full action. So I couldn't cast Guiding Bolt and Healing Word in the same turn. I can only cast Healing Word and then a cantrip, or I can cast Guiding Bolt and that's it, because I don't have any bonus action cantrips. So basically you can only cast 1 leveled spell per turn unless there are specific circumstances, which kind of get more in depth into the game. But right now we're just focusing on conventionally what would happen. So all these are actions. So we don't have any bonus action cantrips. So what this cleric is going to do is that they're going to cast 2 spells, and this is allowed. They're going to cast 2 spells. They're going to Healing Word the rogue. They're going to Healing Word because it's a bonus action. So we'll go ahead and click Healing Word. You say, if you were the cleric, you would say to the DM, I am casting Healing Word on the rogue as my bonus action. And the rogue would receive 4 HP. However, they only took 3 points of damage. Does that mean they get, 1 extra point? No, they cannot. They would only get 3, even though you healed them for 4. You can't go over the max. There are some things where you can get temporary hit points, but those are pretty specific spells. And so right here, you could add temp hit points, but in this case, overhealing does not translate to temporary hit points in this case. So the cleric has done their bonus action. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do an action, because we have a cantrip that's an action because we've only spent our bonus action. And so following the rules of only 1 leveled spell per turn, this cleric is going to look at this goblin. And let's also review the range of the spell too, because that's also very important. 60 feet. And so we want to measure. Okay, we're 25 feet away. We could do this. Not a big deal. So let's go ahead and click Sacred Flame. Well, that's weird. It didn't give us the attack roll that we're used to. Why not? Why didn't it give us the attack? Instead, it is saying a DC 13 Dex 6. So if you click on this, you can see that flame-like radiance descends on the creature that you can see within range. So one, this cleric has to be able to see this goblin, and the target must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take 1d8 radiant damage. The target gains no benefit from cover for this saving throw. So even though they're hiding behind the trees, they gain no benefit of cover. This spell's damage increases by 1d8 when you reach level 5, level 11, and 17. So this goblin would do a dexterity saving throw. However, we don't see a dexterity saving throw on here. So as the DM, they would go in here and add in a 0 to the dexterity saving throw. So that way they can click on dexterity saving throw. And look at that. They rolled a 4. We only take the first one. They're just rolling advantage just to kind of make it easier if they roll advantage or disadvantage. But they rolled a 4. So what does that mean? Well, they rolled lower than the difficulty class. That's what the DC is. Difficulty class 13. So if they rolled a 13 or higher, they would have taken no damage. In this case, this goblin is going to take 5 radiant damage. And the DM could make it flavored in a way where, the cleric, flicks the wrist and the radiant fire of Pelor lights this goblin on fire and causes 5 radiant damage, or something like that. That's getting to a different kind of topic, but that could happen during your combat. So the cleric has now used their action. The cleric has used their bonus action, and we cast 2 spells on our turn. But it follows the rule of only 1 leveled spell per round. In this case, this cleric is going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and try to go straight up, actually. So it's up to your DM on how they want to approach this. I would say this is rough terrain. So in this case, they moved 5 feet. This would be, it wouldn't be, another 5 feet. It would be another 10 feet to get up here. So 5, 15, 20, 25. Or maybe they wanted to be a bit more strategic and hide in the tree line a bit more to, prevent them from being attacked by this goblin here. So we'll go ahead and move the cleric a bit more upward to kind of gain some cover from this goblin. So that's going to go ahead and be the end of the cleric's turn. So we have another casting class, a wizard. And the wizard they really excel at AoE. They can also do a lot of single target damage too. They're just a really good class overall. Discussing what class is good or not is kind of at the purview of this video, but kind of just review each class and see what you think of each class. The wizard is going to go ahead, and you want to look at your spells before you even start the game, because one of the biggest pet peeves that I think of any person is people taking a long time on their turn. And it's kind of a notorious thing amongst spell casters, where once it's their turn, that's when they decide what they want to do, instead of thinking ahead of what they should be or what they could be doing. they decide, oh, I'm going to go ahead and crack open my character sheet to read what spells I have. So in this case, we have a few spells, and you can go through each one and see what each one does. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do something called Magic Missile, and we're going to put it all on this person. And so if we click on Magic Missile, you create 3 glowing darts of magical force. Each dart hits the creature of your choice that you can see within range. A dart deals 1d4 plus 1 force damage to its target. All the darts all hit simultaneously, and you can direct them to hit one or several creatures. So I could split up 3 darts, 1, 2, 3, or I could put it all on one creature. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and put it all on one creature. This also comes into whether or not, how your DM wants to do Magic Missile. I've seen DMs do Magic Missile with just one roll. I see DMs do Magic Missile with multiple rolls. In my case, I prefer doing multiple rolls. I think it makes it more fun. Because there's 3 missiles, we're going to have this person roll Magic Missile 3 times. So let's go ahead and do it. 1, 2, 3. And look at that. All of them were pretty good damage. All of them above average. Kind of unfortunate, right? Because after the second missile, the goblin would have died because they took 8 damage. But since all 3 missiles hit at the same time, and that's also why you should be reviewing the specific verbiage of your spells, all 3 missiles hit at the same time. So it's not like you'd stop one at the last second and say, oh, I actually want to hit this one. Because you called all 3 on this one, any other damage doesn't really translate or transfer over to another creature. It all hits this creature. Even though it has 7 HP, we did 12 points of damage, so it is dead. And another thing that you should be doing is that this costs a spell slot. So in this case, we have 2 spell slots. We used 1, so we're going to go ahead and tick down one of our spell slots because we used a spell slot to cast Magic Missile because it is a strong spell for at least level 1. Cantrips actually are unlimited uses, so don't worry about cantrips. You can use cantrips as many times as you'd like. And we should also do the same for the cleric because we used a leveled spell, remember? So let's go ahead and take this up to 2 and then drop it down to 1 because we used it. And it's just something you want to keep in mind when you are tracking your spell slots. Ultimately, the DM is responsible for tracking spell slots, but you should be fair and track your own spell slots and be honest, be fair with your spell slots, no reason to lie or anything, but ultimately the DM should be tracking spell slots too. So the wizard has done their action. Unfortunately, I don't think that the wizard has a bonus action that they could do. If we review their stuff, yeah, it doesn't look like they have a bonus action. And you can click these open to see what they do, but it looks like they don't have a bonus action. So we're going to go ahead and have this wizard move up a bit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to kind of get a better view of this creature. And so that's the end of their turn. So this goblin, I'm just going to go ahead and make this goblin go first, second, third, fourth. But I think this goblin, this goblin is dead. So we're going to go ahead and remove him from the tracker. Actually, you can see which goblin's which by hovering over it. So, so now this goblin can, they're going to attack the cleric. They're going to try to shoot through the woods. We'll see that this cleric gets half cover, so they're getting a +2 to their AC because they're being strategic about where they're at. So let's see if it hits. It doesn't hit, so it was beneficial for this cleric, really, to be here in this position. But nonetheless, a 16 would have not hit, even if they weren't in cover. So this creature is going to try to be smart and use its terrain to its advantage and run away. You can also see that this creature has something called Nibble Escape, which it could use its bonus action to disengage or hide. And so what we're going to do is we'll see if they roll pretty good. If they could hide. A 23 is pretty good. Let's see if it's hidden away from the cleric. We could do an active perception check, or we could do a passive perception check. It's up to the DM, though. All right, so let's go ahead and roll that perception check to see if the cleric does notice the goblin. And you can find all your skill checks right here. Again, I'm just using Roll20, but you can also calculate this by hand or whatever virtual tabletop you prefer. But per perception, it is right here. And we got a 13. So a 23 against a 13. This goblin will be considered hidden. So from the player's point of view, they wouldn't see this goblin anymore because it is now on the GM layer. And explaining layers and how virtual tabletops work, kind of a different beast altogether, but just know that if this person was playing on here, they would not see this thing, as kind of noted by this see-through token now. And so that's the goblin's turn. So then we'll go to this goblin next, right here. And what could they do here? So you also have to think, if you're a DM, what should this goblin do? What is their best course of action? So if we open up this, goblins can do a few things. Goblins can actually do what's called nimble escape, and they can disengage for their bonus action. So it's in their best interest to just keep doing hit and run tactics, which is entirely possible. If you want to play the goblin that does hit and run tactics, they could. If this goblin sees that there's 3 people coming towards them, probably not the best thing for them, right? So let's go ahead and do just that. We'll try to get this goblin to run into the forest, away from these people. Let's go ahead and do their nimble escape. I'm just clicking that just in case, if a DM or a player asks, like, hey, how are you doing that? You can actually click on these to show like where it's coming from. So because they do the disengage, there's no opportunity attack on this fighter folk hero. So 1, 2 has a movement speed of 3, so we can move up to 6 spaces. 3, 4, 5, 6, kind of deeper into this forest. So one could argue might be providing a bit more in terms of cover, but it also goes both ways too, right? It might be a bit more difficult for this goblin to shoot one of these people now. But knowing that this goblin sees mainly this folk hero and probably this wizard, who would he prefer to shoot? Who's more of a threat? Goblins don't have, they don't have any modifiers to their intelligence. So you could say it's, about an average intelligence. So, probably just shoot this fighter because that's the closest target. We will give this fighter, we'll say half cover because there's a lot of trees in the way of this bow. So we'll go ahead and shoot. Click this. 7. It's rolling advantages, for it's a setting. It makes it easier, honestly, because that way if you have advantage or disadvantage, you don't have to click another thing. But rolls a 7 misses. They would have at least needed a 16 because 14 plus 2, because of half cover, would have hit. In this case, a 7 does not. And that's all this goblin can do, unfortunately. Fighter Noble, what could they possibly do? So there's one goblin left alive here, and for all they know, this person could ask, hey, how many goblins do you have up there? And the cleric might say, well, I did see one. I saw 2, but I don't know where the other one went. So that would tell them that there's 2 up here and then only 1 here. So it might be better for this fighter to go assist over here. So what could they do? Maybe to get a better view is that they could, instead of running down this valley, they can go 1, 2, 3. We'll have to start here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, no, because going up this thing would be going up this hill would probably be or not this hill, but this escarpment would be considered rough terrain, in my opinion. So 5, 6. But now that they're on more even terrain, you could argue that this goblin would be in sight, doesn't have half cover, so it might be easier for this noble fighter to shoot this goblin. So I think that's what we're going to do. So we could see that the ranged weapon that this fighter has is a javelin. And looking at the range between this fighter and this goblin, it's 45 feet. So if we went back to our weapons tab, we could see that there are two ranges shown in the property. One is 30, the other is 120. 30 is a maximum range that this weapon can be used with normal rolls. After that, anything above 30 is considered disadvantage. And the highest range you can have is 120. So anything above 120, you can't even roll for it. So because the goblin is 45 feet away, they could still roll for it, but it's at disadvantage. So let's go ahead and do that just to kind of show what it would look like. So again, rolling at disadvantage on this goblin here. Man, that would have been a great hit. That would have, well, actually, that roll was really good regardless, but a crit would have been more fun to role play. But a 24 and a 25, I mean, that's pretty darn close to double crits, but does 9 damage. So because there's two numbers here, when you roll a crit, you roll an extra damage die. And you can even see here it says 1d6 crit, and that's where the extra 3 is coming from. So since it's disadvantage, we take the 24 and we remove that 3. Still does 9 damage. So this fighter pulls back, launches the javelin across this valley. It soars through the air, and it impales and lands on this goblin's chest, and then instantly kills them. This goblin is dead. So that's the fighter's action. I believe there's no point for them to use their second wind, so because they don't have any health taken away. So movement and action is gone. No bonus action. We go into the next person, which is this goblin, which is now dead. So we remove him from the tracker just to make it easier for us. So now it's the rogue's turn. So the rogue will see that this goblin has died, but will assist in trying to find this goblin. So what they'll do is they'll dash, actually. They'll dash to kind of see where this goblin went. So that doubles their movement, right? So we can get all the way over here. Boom. So after that, let's see if they can roll a perception check to see if they can find them. Let's see. 10. It's probably not going to beat what the goblin rolls, because a 10 is, well, a 10 is considered average, right? So, but we'll see. They do have a +6 though, so you'd have to roll pretty much a 4 or lower. 14. They're hidden still. So question might come up is, well, what if they rolled a 10 as well? And the typical saying is meets beats, but that only really applies to DC and AC. But when it comes to opposed checks, I don't think, and this is just me personally as a DM, I don't think that meets beats. I think it just means that they need to re-roll again. So if they both rolled 10, I would ask for a re-roll. And then if it, tied again, just keep re-rolling until they don't tie, pretty much. So this goblin's still hidden. This rogue does not see anything. So unfortunately, the rogue can't really do much because they don't know where this goblin is. Arguably, they could say, oh, well, could they try to slash at a random area where they think the goblin might be? It's again, it's up to the DM. I personally wouldn't allow it because, you can say that this goblin's hiding behind some trees or in a bush. You just don't know where, right? But, it's up to the DM. So moving on to the folk fighter hero. Let's go down here. This person will go ahead and chase after the goblin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's go ahead and chase them down. Boom. And let's go ahead and use a great sword. They also have a longbow too, as you can see. Their longbow is actually a bit better than their great sword. As you can see, they have a +3 in the dexterity and only a +2 in strength. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and use their great sword. And they also have a global attack modifier of archery, so you could tell that this fighter is more spec'd into archery than melee fighting. 17. So let's see what their AC is. 15 definitely beats it. I wouldn't say that they have half cover because being melee that close, they're not really hiding behind trees. So to say, they might be, using trees to their advantage, but actively doing that, I would say, the goblin would have to take an action to dodge, and they might get a little bonus to the AC. But since this goblin was just running away and shooting, I wouldn't give them that. So 17 does hit on an AC of 15, does 8 damage, and so that's all of the health possible. This goblin is done. So this side is successful at beating the goblins over here. So let's go ahead and so that's their action. No bonus action. Let's go to the cleric. Let's have the cleric 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's have them roll perception. Boom, a 16. That it's possible. It's definitely possible. But a +6 is going to be hard. They would have to roll a 10 or lower. 10 being the 2 rerolls. So see, they tied. Okay, so now I'm going to ask them to redo the rolls because they both tied. So let's see what the goblin gets. A nat 20. This goblin is really good at hiding. Unfortunate. So the cleric can't really do anything. The cleric doesn't see the goblin, doesn't know where it's at. So the cleric, unfortunately, could do a dash action to maybe think that they ran further into the forest. That's a possibility. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then the wizard knows that everything's wrapped up here, and might ask over here, hey, what's going on over there? So they will dash and give chase to help out, to see if they can assist in any way, and dash all the way over here, 60 movement. So let's see. So that's that goblin. That's this one down here, I believe. Yeah, let's go ahead and remove that one just to clean up the order. Reduce this HP because it was killed instantly. So what should this goblin do? So realistically, yes, this goblin's hidden. Could be said, oh, maybe they're hiding in the trees. It's not necessarily invisibility or anything. It's just that this goblin's hiding in a bush or something. So with that being said, I would say if this goblin moved, they would be seen. So that would just be me, but let's go ahead and have this goblin attack the rogue with advantage because they're unseen. So we'll say that this goblin, was hiding up in the trees and they drop down onto this rogue. Let's go ahead and do that. So we'll pull up the sheet, scimitar, and we'll have them do advantage. So 19. So they do 3 slashing damage. The goblin jumps down, slashes at this rogue, hits him for 3 damage. And now this goblin is visible. So does 3 damage. It's 3. And we'll do a bonus action disengage to have this goblin run away from all these people. There we go. Awesome. Noble Fighter is up next. So this Noble Fighter will go up to here. And we'll say that they're measuring again 50 feet. That is still within range of their javelins. And we'll assume that usually you could see how many javelins someone has. So it looks like they have. I believe this is the quantity. So it looks like there's 3 javelins. So let's go ahead and throw another. To get back a javelin, this fighter would have to go over here, pull the javelin out of the body to pick it back up. But, usually that's done automatically at the end of combat. So technically we're down to 2 javelins. But let's go ahead and throw this one. A 7, because it's at disadvantage, unfortunately does not hit. This fighter, unfortunately, does not land their attack. For the rogue, let's go ahead and have the rogue go here. Boom, 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 boom. Let's see if they have any ranged attacks. They do. They have a short bow. So let's go ahead and do that. Go ahead and attack. 14 and 23. So it is just a normal attack. 14 does not land. They have an AC of 15. Unfortunate. That is all this rogue can do. So we'll go to the Folk Hero Fighter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Boom. He does have fighting style archery. So let's go ahead and pull this longbow back and attack this. And we can pull the cheat up for the longbow. It's not as simple. I believe it's a martial weapon. Yes. So now the range is 150 for normal. So anything 150 feet or below is considered a normal attack. Anything above 150 to 600 is a disadvantage. So in order to get disadvantage, you have to be above 600 feet. Pretty far. So let's go ahead and click longbow onto this goblin. Boom. 17. That hits. This goblin is dead. Yeah, the fighter pulls back the longbow, aims precisely and properly. You see the arrow fly straight and true. And it hits this goblin in the neck, and the goblin falls over and dies. And so that is, a roundabout way of how combat would go in D&D. In some cases, there might be other scenarios that I don't cover, but for the most part, this will get you started in understanding how combat works in D&D for the most part. For other things that we didn't touch, spells can be a bit tricky. Again, just make sure to review your spells, what they do, read them ahead of time, so that way you understand what you're using. And also, sometimes you'll get feats like this, like the fighter gets a class feature. This is a class feature, fighting style archery. Usually you choose this when you create the character, but in this case, there was a +2 to the bonus. So if we hover over here, so I just actually noticed something very interesting. There was an error that occurred. I was actually just playing around with this right now. Originally on this roll, on this 17, if we look at it, it has the D20, it has the 3 dex from the modifier up here, the 3 dex, as well as the proficiency bonus because we are proficient with martial weapons. So that's where we get the proficiency bonus. But what I don't see is the global attack modifier from the class feature fighting style archery. So we should have got a +2 as well on the 17. So these should have been 19s. I was clicking around a bit and I unchecked it and checked it back. Now this +2 is being added. So you do have to add these two manually, which, simple math, 17 here and a nat 20 plus, a +2. This was going to hit automatically, but it's, 27 to hit. Pretty good. So just something to keep in mind. Sometimes the numbers, always double check your numbers. That's an important thing, is to double check everything. It's nice to have virtual tabletops that automatically do all these things for you, but sometimes things aren't added in and you have to add it in automatically, or sorry, you have to add it in manually. So just note that. Make sure you have the formulas down, make sure you understand how these formulas come to be and all that. And another thing too is sometimes DMs will ask you to track resources like arrows. In this case, we fired off, I believe, 2 arrows. 1 or 2, I can't remember how many. I think maybe only 1. But in any case, we would -1 arrow because of that 17 or the 19 we did early, the 19 attack. So we would -1 arrow because 1 was shot, and then you could technically collect your arrows after the combat. But again, that's also another reason why DMs don't typically track resources like this, because it's assumed that you pick up your arrows, you pick up your javelins, that sort of thing. And after combat's done, usually it's cleared in the tracking order. The DM will say you are out of initiative, and that disappears. And then sometimes people like to say, I check the body. What do I find? Stuff like that. Like I search the bodies for anything that they might have. So these players can roll for investigation. So we'll just say this fighter rolls for investigation. A nat 20 on investigation. So with a nat 20, I would be inclined to give them something really good, if not something valuable, but something really good. Like they find a hand-drawn map of a nearby base that these goblins were operating out of, or they find a bag full of 50 gold pieces. it's rare to get a nat 20 on an investigation check, but nonetheless, that is, in my opinion, something that you could do. But in any case, I hope this helps. If you do have any other questions that I didn't cover, please feel free to hit it up in the comments down below, and maybe I'll make another one of these videos covering other topics. But for now, I hope this gets you started in D&D. Let me know if you end up joining a campaign and how it went. I'd love to hear how your campaign went and your experience with D&D. I know my experience with D&D has been really fun and very exciting, and it's been very rewarding. I met a lot of great people from it. D&D has been a very fun time for me. I thoroughly enjoy it, and I continue to DM, and I'm also a player character in other campaigns too. So but like I said, in any case, I appreciate you watching this, and I hope you have a good one. I'll see you next time.